Mardi Gras, it's one of the nation's most famous celebrations held every year in New Orleans. But did you know that DePaul has its own version of Mardi Gras? Attorney General Lisa Madigan vows to put an end to the Suburban Express bus company. Those cute little things were out again this year at DePaul. I'm talking about the university's annual gnome hunt. Developers have expressed interest in the property. Some have submitted proposals to the village and Tinley Park here, including plans for things like a casino and a racetrack. Coronavirus continues to ravage China. Here in the U.S., I talked to officials at DePaul and elsewhere about their plans for dealing with the virus. Rising lake levels have caused some Chicago beaches to completely wash away, which is what happened here at Juneway Beach Park. It is all locked up now. I'm standing here on the western edge of the 606 trail, where home prices have increased dramatically. Experts say the eastern edge hasn't been as affected. The coronavirus continues to spread, with most of the cases in mainland China, especially Wuhan City, where it originated. Last month, a Chicago woman contracted the virus after traveling to Wuhan. Her husband later tested positive. The couple was treated at a Hoffman Estates hospital and are now clear of the illness. None of the U.S. cases has been fatal. Experts believe the virus is spread through respiratory droplets.
When we all speak, some of us spit a little bit. We have a runny nose. And really where it comes from in the traditional respiratory virus is that we have our hands up around our face, and then we touch something, or we shake somebody's hand, we touch something like a doorknob, and before that dries up and dies, somebody touches that same doorknob, and then they have the same ridiculous habit.
Sarah Connolly is a virologist and professor at DePaul. She says the coronavirus can easily be killed by disinfectant.
Coronaviruses are killed by Lysol pretty easily. So as long as you're wiping down surfaces, you don't have to worry. The most important thing you got to do is wash your hands, and that's what you got to do in flu season anyways.
The virus is heavy, meaning it can't travel far. This makes it unlikely that the virus is able to travel through ventilation systems. Chicago area universities, including the University of Chicago, Loyola, and DePaul, are following the travel advisory from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. It's currently a level 3 advisory, which recommends that travelers avoid all non-essential travel to China at this time. Some DePaul students say they're taking some basic precautions.
I tend to try not to touch too many things on the CTA just to be safe, regardless of the flu, coronavirus, or just a simple head cold. So do I think it's overblown? No, but yes at the same time, I guess. I just say, take precautionary measures. Anything you would do to try to keep from being sick, just do that.
The U.S. has evacuated nearly 400 Americans from a cruise ship in Japan, and 14 of them had the virus. In all, some 200 passengers on the ship had tested positive for the virus. The Americans returning to the country will be quarantined for an additional 14 days at military air bases. Jay Baglia is a health communications expert at DePaul. He believes some people have shown more concern about the coronavirus than the flu because it's something they're unfamiliar with.
The flu is not novel, right? It's not we prepare for the flu every year, either by getting our flu shots or being told to get flu shots or by declaring that we're not going to get a flu shot. Most Americans have never heard of coronavirus in this form, and certainly not the Wuhan version.
Experts say right now the recommended treatment is supportive care in a hospital. Researchers across the globe are using what they know about the SARS outbreak, a deadly virus of the early 2000s, to eventually develop treatments and vaccines. The CDC says the coronavirus remains a low risk here in the U.S. compared to other viruses like this year's flu, which is responsible for over 10,000 deaths so far. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Erica Carbajal. Residents of Tinley Park in Chicago's southwest suburbs have been asking for this 280-acre property to be cleaned up for over 7 years. It used to be home to the Tinley Park Mental Health Center and closed in 2012. Since then, residents have been concerned about the growing health and safety hazards.
There's issues with asbestos, black mold, chemical waste, leaky tanks, landfills that need to be closed. And obviously, a situation like that doesn't get better over time. It's gotten worse.
The state of Illinois owns the land and estimated that cleanup efforts would cost over $12 million, but that estimate was from 5 years ago.
It's environmentally unsound. Frankly, it's an eyesore right in the middle of Tinley Park. And if there's ever any damage, a fire or something there, we're very concerned about the safety of our residents and the safety of first responders that have to respond out there.
The State Department of Central Management Services started contracting security officers to patrol the property in November. There's no fencing, and the no trespassing signs haven't stopped everyone. A records request showed that since 2014, the Tinley Park Police Department has received 119 calls related to the property. 60 of those were for criminal trespassing or a suspicious person or item on the property. And developers have expressed interest in the property. Some have submitted proposals to the village and Tinley Park here, including plans for things like a casino and a racetrack.
The state of Illinois may not necessarily have the money to go ahead and clean these places up, which is a little confusing for me since there has been investors that come by and wanted to purchase the property and clean it up with their own funds.
And some politicians are now taking notice. Congressman Dan Lipinski and Bobby Rush recently wrote letters to the Environmental Protection Agency, calling for federal support to develop remediation plans.
Somebody needs to act soon, and we're not going to sit tight until somebody begins to act to clean it up.
But finally, just weeks ago on March 5th, a sign of progress. The state issued a news release saying it's waiting for the property to be appraised before they can sell it to the village. And Governor Pritzker indicated that once that happens, a resolution to this issue may finally be found. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Erica Carbajal. Chicago's 606 Trail is a 2.7-mile path connecting Northside neighborhoods from Bucktown to Humboldt Park. Caroline O'Boyle works for a nonprofit organization that helped develop the trail. She says one of their goals was to add green spaces to neighborhoods that lacked them.
The idea was to provide a community connector and public open space for people who are living in neighborhoods that have that are considered to be park poor, particularly Logan Square.
And the trail is busy, with many people making it a part of their daily routine. But some feel the 606 Trail hasn't benefited everyone equally. Its popularity has contributed to rapid increases in home values near the trail, forcing some longtime residents out, a process known as gentrification. Gary Jimenez and his family lived in the same Humboldt Park residence for 10 years, just a few blocks from the 606. But once it opened, they couldn't afford to stay.
Our rent went up right around $500. So yeah, and my parents couldn't afford to do that because, I mean, you know, they're two people working class, and it was extremely difficult to hear that we were going to have to move further west.
When families are displaced, it can affect many areas that make up a community, including school funding.
That's why we have schools around here where they don't have a librarian, they don't have a counselor, they don't have a social worker, they don't have a nurse, because there's not enough students in the school for the city to supposedly justify those expenses.
Not all neighborhoods along the 606 have seen drastic changes. On the western end in Logan Square and Humboldt Park neighborhoods, new buyers coming into the neighborhoods are willing to pay high premiums, over 22%, to live near the trail, according to a study released by DePaul University's Institute for Housing Studies. The study says home prices have increased on the west end nearly 48% since the trail broke ground in 2013, compared to about 14% in the east. In 2012, the median price for a 2 to 4 unit building on the western end was $97,000. By 2018, that median price had gone up to $462,000.
We're losing those units. We're losing them as affordable. So in a place like Logan Square, where you just see rents going up, pretty rapidly and consistently, those units, because they don't have any requirement to be affordable, often become more expensive over time because landlords have the ability to raise rents to meet that market demand.
The City Council recently approved a 6-month moratorium on demolitions near the 606 Trail to help with gentrification.
My expectation is that the Department of Housing will continue the work that they have been doing on coming up with a much more comprehensive citywide plan on how we can grow neighborhoods and transform them without displacing long-term residents.
The 6-month moratorium on demolitions officially starts February 1st, but that's just the first step in stopping displacement. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Erica Carbajal. DePaul's opera students are getting ready for their production of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. The students were cast back in September, and rehearsals began just about 7 weeks ago. Director Harry Silverstein says the students had a lot to learn before they could start practicing.
It has to be perfectly memorized before they can begin the so-called staging work. And as a result, they have to put in a lot of memorization time.
And this opera required some extra memorization.
They're working in Italian, so they have to learn the language and understand it and make sure they're pronouncing it correctly.
Chorus member Erin Hogan says while she spent a lot of time studying the over 500-page score, the excitement on performance day and audience reactions will make it all worth it.
Because you really get to see everyone's hard work come together, and it becomes a very big team effort to get it all ready to go. I hope that first-time opera goers will hear the amazing music of Mozart. It's just so fun, and the humor in the opera and the contrast between classes, the higher class and the lower class, and that they'll just feel really good and want to go see more.
The comedy begins on the wedding day of two servants, Figaro and Susanna. But things don't go smoothly for the two as the count they work for tries to win Susanna over, even though he's married. Marique de Cuequer plays a lead role as Susanna and says she appreciates the message her character conveys.
Although people call the opera The Marriage of Figaro, Susanna appears the most out of all the characters in the show, and she's so smart and so powerful. And this is a very political opera for its time. So I really love being able to express my own beliefs, as a woman.
Silverstein says Mozart's portrayal of relatable feelings makes this opera one of his favorites.
Although many things about us change, how we feel doesn't. So his ability to understand why people are feeling a particular way and how they interact with each other, that it's precisely the same now as it was 300 years ago or 1,000 years ago.
A powerful theme from a memorable opera. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Erica Carbajal.